we talked about like watching the bye, and I think it's also cool to like make sure we pay attention and talk about teams that are on buys right now. The Dallas Cowboys are heading into the bye, P, and it's one of those teams where like we know who the studs are on this team. It's CD and it's Dak. That's really where it starts and stops. If you want to call Jake Ferguson in there, that's fine. But we have not seen the Dak that we saw last year. And I think a lot of people are frustrated right now with the CeeDee Lamb that we're seeing this year, even though he's the wide receiver 9 on the season. Kind of gives me like the same feeling of like a Bijan and Brees Hall, who are like still top 10 at the running back position, but people are
Mhm.
scared. And I've seen a lot of like people saying, hey, should I be panicking on CeeDee Lamb right now? Do I trade CeeDee Lamb? And I don't know that that's the right move. Like we saw him get extremely hot last year where he was like 25, 28 points a game. How you feeling about CD this year? Because he got paid, Dak got paid, and sometimes when players get paid, we don't see the same output. It doesn't feel like that's the case to me, though. It just feels like a bad string of games here.
Yeah, it does kind of seem like a bad string of games, and then he's going to have his bye. But he's only had what, one or two 20-point games. It's definitely not the CD that you expected. It's definitely not the CD you took in the top half of the first round. I am
First
of the
pick
belief
sometimes.
exactly right. Like you can't panic on him, right? You can't sell him. If I don't have him, I'm looking to probably send some trade offers to him because the owner of the CeeDee Lamb just probably, unless he drafted immaculate after that, probably has like a 500 or below record, right? So I'm looking to buy him because it's a similar situation as last year. Through the first 4 weeks, CD was like, not he wasn't CD, right? Dallas, they couldn't run the ball last year, and then they just let Dak cook. I do believe that that's going to happen again this year because their running game is non-existent. They're off of a bye. CD's a little bit more vocal. You can see CD chirping. You can see his frustrations. And whether it's like directly negative towards Dak or whether it's like in support of Dak, he's still like talking. You know what I'm saying? So I think that they're going to at some point realize that the offense needs to go through CD. So I'm buying CD. If I don't have him, I'm buying. If I do have him, I'm definitely holding him. I'm not considering trading him at this point. At this point in time.
There's no way I would be trading CeeDee Lamb, and you have to treat these assets sometimes. And I talked about this with the Jonathan Taylor take. It's like sometimes you have to treat these assets as they are, and you can't like. It depends on your record, but like CD's not hurt. He's not playing bad. He's just not playing up to your expectations. And literally, there hasn't been. You mentioned this a lot of. There hasn't been a lot of high scoring this year, right? So 140-point game from CeeDee Lamb might have you thinking a whole lot different about this season. And I think the fact that he's on a bye and maybe you have him in your 2-4, your 3-3, you're like, damn, I want to have my guy. I can't afford another loss. That's what's in the back of your head right now. And it'll be easy to move him for like a Jaden Reed or for like a Malik Neighbors. And I think in your head, you're probably thinking like, this is a good deal for me because I got to get wins now. And that's not always the case. You can find in fantasy, P, the average person thinks that one player is to blame for their whole season. Like I made this wrong pick. When it's really a collection of your overall talent. It's your entire team, and you have to take inventory of that and say, do I have enough hitters to make a championship run here? If your answer is no, you need to go acquire more hitters,
Yeah.
whether that's
Yeah.
free agency or sending out trades. And it's like sometimes you sit on the shelf too long, you're not able to get that done. With CeeDee Lamb, that's the kind of player you want to have at his floor right now. I don't think you trade him right now.
Definitely. You definitely don't trade him. A lot of things tend to balance out as well, right? When I say that, it's like if they have a rough first half of the season or first quarter of the season, and they're looking like a back end wide receiver one, whatever, top 12, and they're generally like a top 3 or 4 wide receiver. Generally, that balances out. So they're going to have those blow up games that they haven't been lacking. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to be at the bottom of his production, trade him so that somebody else can benefit from the top of his production, right? So if he's if he's running at like wide receiver 12, 13, 14 right now, you want to have him and make sure that you're aware that these, if you don't have him, if you do have him, you want to make sure that you're aware that these blow up games will come to balance his seasonal stats out, right? Because at this pace, he's definitely not going to finish as like a 1,100, 1,200 yard type of guy, right? That's
He
not
might.
who he is.
Might.
No, he won't. No, I mean, if you're talking to the you're talking to the CD owner, I'm saying, yeah, he might. He
Oh,
might
you mean
just
that
have
floor? You
1,200
mean
yards.
that floor? I was like, bro, he gonna clear it 1,100, 1,200 yards.
No, I'm saying, yeah, I'm saying
got
right now he's on pace for that. When in reality, he's like a 14, 1,500 yard type of receiver, right? So those games are going to come. You want to be the one to benefit from those. If you have them, hold them. If you don't have them, I'd say go and get them, right? I'm more the one to try and go and get them so I can benefit from those games. And his schedule hasn't even been that tough, bro. It has not been that tough.
Last year, there was a lot of the same chirping about CeeDee Lamb, and he hasn't had a 100-yard game yet. He's only had one 20-point fantasy day. Last year after the bye, CeeDee Lamb came back out 3 straight 100-yard games. And it's like, at some point, he was holding out. Sometimes you need a training camp. There was money going on. The bye is a reset for a lot of star players. After the bye last year, CeeDee Lamb, in the 10 games that he played, 11 games that he played, he had 9 games with a touchdown. 9. He only had 2 games where he didn't score. 158 yards, 191 yards, 151 yards in the 3 games after the bye. Mm-hmm. This is exactly what you're talking about. You don't want to miss out on the peak because we ain't seen it yet. Mm-hmm. Hold CeeDee Lamb, don't panic. Same thing when we talk about CeeDee Lamb. Dak Prescott has consistently been a top 10 quarterback in fantasy, like over the last few seasons, consistently. Whether we want to admit it or not, whether, you can say whatever you want about him on the real football field. But when it comes to fantasy, he's lightweight underrated. And we're expecting a CeeDee Lamb explosion. This guy was the QB3 last season. You think there's some upside for Dak Prescott, who I think might be a floor candidate right now.
Yeah, Dak Prescott, I think he finished the last 10 or 11 games as the QB1. And what's even more beneficial to this team for fantasy purposes is the fact that their defense is ass. They can't stop the run. They're going to have to fucking throw the rock. They're going to have to air it out. When you can't run the rock and you can't stop the run, you have to do something. You have to turn it around quick, bro, because you already paid these guys. You know what I'm saying? And all you got to do is let them cook. And that's exactly what's going to happen.
I think so too, man. It wouldn't be surprising, it's a bye week. They didn't go trade for a receiver. That run game been a little suspect there. Might be a running back that they might have to go, saying, go come back.
AK action, maybe, man. Them guns may be coming out, baby.
Shooter's gonna shoot. Hey,